Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is NopNapNarp, and today we're back to talking about the love of my life, Batman. In this episode of Psychology of Gaming, the series where we examine how psychological principles are implemented into video games, we take a look at Batman's biggest rival, the Joker, as we attempt to prove he is living with Antisocial Personality Disorder. In other words, Joker is a sociopath. And today, we're gonna learn just what that label entails. That's right, everybody. Get ready to channel your inner high school self, because
you're gonna learn today. You're gonna learn today.
That's right, you're gonna learn today. So, I've just finished up playing Telltale's newest completed series, Batman: The Enemy Within. You can expect a full review of this game up on the channel within about a week or so, but for now, let's focus in on one specific character. A character who has been portrayed many different times in many different ways, but always with that glint of chaos and destruction in his eyes. Okay, I guess I can just stop building it up here. You already know what character I'm talking about. Hell, I just said it 2 seconds ago. If you looked at the thumbnail and you're not a moron, you know we're talking about the Joker. Anyway, yeah, Joker is a sociopath, and I notice that's a word that gets thrown around a lot in today's society, specifically here in the United States, and I wonder just how many people actually understand what this label means. There's a lot more to it than just saying a person is a sociopath because they are crazy or messed up in the head. So the goal here is to explain just why Joker is the perfect example of a person living with antisocial personality disorder using his presentation within the game, Batman: The Enemy Within. Let me be clear here from the start. Joker meets the standards used to characterize a sociopath in every version I've seen of the character, from Jack Nicholson's Joker to Heath Ledger's Joker, and of course the cringe that is Jared Leto's Joker. And he's even a sociopath in other video games such as the Batman Arkham series. However, today we're going to be focusing in on how the Joker is portrayed in Batman: The Enemy Within. This game is a sequel to Telltale's original Batman series, and this time around, the Joker is one of the main characters that our hero Batman interacts with. I'm going to give a quick recap of the story here, just so you can better understand the overall narrative of the game, which I think in turn will help you understand some of the examples I use later on. So be warned, there are spoilers ahead. And in a Telltale game, that's pretty much what you play for, the story, so keep that in mind if you want to play this game. So anyway, Batman: The Enemy Within is a story about Bruce Wayne's ongoing life as the Caped Crusader, Batman. The game opens with a new threat to Gotham's safety: the return of the Riddler. Throughout the first episode, Bruce Wayne attempts to stop the Riddler from sending the city into chaos, and he learns that Riddler is a member of a group called the Pact, which is essentially a coalition force of bad guys. You got Riddler, Harley Quinn, Bane, Mr. Freeze, and Joker, who is actually called John Doe for a majority of the game. After Riddler is killed at the hands of an unknown assassin, Bruce Wayne is forced to infiltrate the Pact under the manipulation of Amanda Waller, who is a tough-as-nails and somewhat corrupt task force leader of a group called the Agency. If you've seen Suicide Squad or read most of the Batman comics, you'll immediately recognize her character. Waller knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne and threatens to unveil his identity unless he cooperates with her and does exactly as she says. So, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, Bruce Wayne is forced to slum it up and become a member of the Pact in order to learn about their plans and what their end goal is for Gotham. During the second, third, and fourth episodes, Bruce Wayne forms a friendship with John Doe, who slips deeper and deeper into madness as the game progresses. Depending on how the player chooses to treat John Doe, Bruce either considers him a true friend and asset to his operation, or just as a tool to be used to reach his end goal of discovering what the Pact intends to do in Gotham. During these middle episodes, Bruce is forced to make tough decisions about how to handle his friendship with John Doe. For example, once John realizes that Bruce is a mole, Bruce must decide how to get John not to turn him in. He does this by giving Joker relationship advice on how to handle his situation with Harley. In another scene, John kills members of the agency and reveals to Bruce that he knows his identity as Batman. Bruce is forced to decide whether John can still be trusted as an ally, or must he be turned in for his crimes. Regardless of your choices, you still see that Joker is not completely right in the head. All of these decisions mold your relationship with John, but in the end, you can't always reason with someone living with antisocial personality disorder. And when Waller places the blame for Riddler's death on John, he absolutely loses control and dons his new persona as Joker. At first, he attempts to be Batman's sidekick, but upon seeing that Batman is unwilling to compromise on his morals and is unwilling to kill Waller, Joker snaps, and the true clown prince of crime is born. In an epic final confrontation, Batman and Joker duke it out, and both are left exhausted. But Joker is defeated and sent back to Arkham Asylum. So for the purposes of this video, I think that's enough about the story. It kind of gives you just a broad overview. If you played the game, you already know all of this, and if you haven't, well, you have a good enough sense to understand what's to come. Okay, now that we understand a bit about the story, let's see how the developers at Telltale did their best to portray Joker as a person living with antisocial personality disorder. So what is antisocial personality disorder, or APD for short? Well, like we talked about in Psychology of Gaming episode 5, there exists a sub-study of psychology called abnormal psychology. If you've watched that video, you may recall that abnormal psychology is the study of unusual thoughts and behaviors and the mental health disorders they manifest as. In other words, an abnormal psychologist spends a lot of time studying people who are living with mental health conditions such as addiction, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and in our case, antisocial personality disorder. All of these conditions, alongside many other mental health disorders, are outlined in a medical book called the DSM-5, or the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, version 5. Yeah, we probably just should stick with DSM-5. It's a lot easier to say. A lot less of a mouthful. Psychologists, doctors, and therapists use the DSM-5 as a tool for diagnosing patients with different mental health disorders, as the book outlines symptoms, causes, and treatment options for each of the known conditions. As with any medical journal, the book is updated every few years to keep up with our expanded understanding of the human mind. Joker is of course the poster child for one of these mental health disorders, antisocial personality disorder. The DSM defines APD as follows, quote, an individual who habitually and pervasively disregards or violates the rights and considerations of others without remorse. Their behaviors are often either focused on engaging in criminal behavior or on breaking social norms and expectations, or some combination of both, end quote. To make that a bit more understandable, think of it this way. People living with APD often are extremely impulsive and are unable to resist urges and thrill-seeking no matter what the cost. They are more likely to engage in criminal behavior such as drug dealing, theft, arson, and murder, but simultaneously, they also engage in non-criminal behaviors that often cause others to feel awkward, uncomfortable, or threatened. And the key part here is that all of these actions are done with little to no remorse. People with APD don't feel guilty when they do something bad. And in real life, you do often see this represented when family members of murder victims talk to the killers in trials. The speaking family member is always in distress and in a lot of pain, and you can tell it's a very emotional moment for them. Meanwhile, the killer with APD just sits there, either expressionless or laughing, unfazed by the emotions, the weight of the situation, and ultimately by the heinous crimes they committed.
The probation department reports to me that you have no remorse whatsoever for taking this human life.
Is that right? Yes.
Pardon me?
Yes.
It doesn't matter at all to you that you took a human life?
No.
Spooner showed no remorse and even slammed the boy's mother.
Me
God forgive you, Ms. Larry, for your lying and cheating and stealing.
Turned cold.
Just so you know, he's laughing right now.
I really don't care about this, because you know what, you laughing now, but the moment they get you behind those prison walls for the rest of your life, you will be somebody's girlfriend, and that smile will no longer be on your face, it will be tears.
As you can see, they simply do not care. APD is characterized by this lack of remorse, but symptoms of this condition can take many forms. I'm going to list off a few here, just to give you an idea of what this condition looks like. So, all of these symptoms are part of APD. Disregard for right and wrong, erratic behavior that shows disillusions from reality, constant disrespect and cynicism towards others, misguided attempts at emotion that show a lack of understanding of emotional situations, using charm or wit to manipulate others for personal gain, hostility or agitation that is accompanied by aggression and violence, engaging in dangerous situations and unneeded risk-taking, failure to consider the consequences of their actions with a lack of critical thinking skills, recurring problems with the law and engaging in criminal behaviors, and unhealthy relationships with others. These are just a few symptoms that a person living with APD can have, but there are many others. For now, let's see how Joker's APD manifests in Telltale's Batman: The Enemy Within. Telltale's vision of Joker's antisocial personality disorder is one of the more interesting ones, at least in my opinion, as we get to see Joker grapple with the disorder as the game progresses and how eventually it ends up consuming him. In this game, Joker, or John Doe, doesn't start out as a born killer. Sure, he spends time in Arkham Asylum, but it isn't exactly clear why he's there, and even Joker himself comments that he can't remember his past before Arkham.
I don't remember anything about myself before Arkham, and when I came to, well, here it was.
The Joker that Bruce gets to know is eccentric and has a tendency towards violence, but he isn't immediately portrayed as a born killer in the game, such as they do with Harley Quinn and Mr. Freeze. In fact, remember when I said earlier that APD can manifest itself in ways other than pure criminal behavior? You know, those moments where they engage in behaviors that break societal norms and rules? Well, Joker starts this game displaying those sorts of behaviors. Also, more spoilers ahead. Actually, spoilers right now. In the first episode, Lucius Fox is killed by the Riddler, and at his funeral, Joker shows up to meet with Bruce. At the funeral, however, he is displaying behaviors that aren't appropriate for a funeral setting. He is eccentric and talks to Lucius's daughter Tiffany in a way that isn't very respectful to someone who just lost a family member, commenting that her father went out with a bang.
Lucius! Lucius! No!
So sorry, really. It's such a shame. At least he went out with a bang, right?
Already, Joker is displaying the symptom of a lack of understanding of emotional situations. This is our entry point to the character for this game, and as it progresses, he will display more and more of the symptoms I mentioned earlier. So, let's see it in action, shall we? Let's start with this symptom, erratic behavior that shows signs of disillusions. This symptom is with Joker from the beginning, as every time he speaks, you get a sense of how disconnected from reality he actually is.
I'm the new guy now. It's the freedom that gets to you. There's so damn much you hardly know what to do with it.
You can tell that this is the case from the cadences in his voice and how his tone is constantly changing. You can also see this in how he behaves in certain situations. For example, if you refuse to meet with John's friends, Joker comments how that makes him want to lash out and begins getting into an argument with another person at the funeral, and he even threatens violence against that other person, which is definitely a symptom of APD.
You know, I spoke so highly of you. I told them you'd fit right in. Just makes me want, I don't know, lash out. Shh. Shh. We're here to mourn. Please, you shush me again. You'll be mourning the loss of your teeth.
Here's another example of erratic behavior from Joker. After learning that Harley has been left behind to deal with the agency, his tone of voice consistently switches from being sad to being angry, as he is so blind to the situation that he wants to run off on his own to save her, despite the enormous odds that are stacked against him.
How could we leave her? We need to get Harley. Now!
Impossible. She's dead or in jail.
So we break her out!
And if she's dead?
You better hope she's not. We have to help her. She'll be expecting us. She needs us.
We'll get her back, John. I promise.
Great. Let's go. We have to go now. Right now!
We don't have time to waste on her.
But...
That's enough. Save your breath. We have the cargo. Let's get this over with.
You'll regret this, Bane!
These are just a few examples, but honestly, you constantly get this feeling of uneasiness around Joker for the entirety of the game, and that's a result of this symptom constantly being present. Another symptom is Joker using charm and wit to manipulate those around him, which we see throughout the game as well. In one scene, Joker is quick to take Bruce's advice that the best way to get a person to respect you is to manipulate them without them knowing. And Joker constantly uses his uneasy charm to ask Bruce for favors and forgiveness even when the situation clashes with Batman's moral code, as in this scene where Joker kills agency people but tries to convince Bruce it was done solely in self-defense.
What happened? Is Harley here?
She left just as I got here. The agents, they came looking for her. They're not supposed to just start shooting, Bruce. They're supposed to say, hands up! I've seen it on the TV.
They just attacked you.
I tried to talk sense into them, but they wouldn't listen.
You can be straight with me, John.
Why wouldn't I be telling you the truth? If I hadn't fought them off, I'd be the one lying in a pool of blood. You still have faith in me, don't you? Your old buddy, John?
Joker is also very impulsive, as we've seen so far, and this leads to many encounters in which he is willing to engage in acts of extreme violence and even murder without considering how it may, in turn, affect him and the people around him. In the earlier portions of the game, we don't see Joker engage in too many acts of physical violence, although he does engage in other criminal behaviors such as theft when he steals a slushie for Harley, and also steals a car to get around in. But in the later stages of the game, Joker's violent side comes out. At the end of episode 4, we see Joker kill members of the agency, and he claims that he wasn't himself, and he got into a blind rage, and then he lost control and was just doing it for self-defense. But it leaves many people dead. He also stabs Amanda Waller in the gut after she tries to arrest him. That's another example of violent behavior. Finally, in episode 5, we see Joker on a full killing spree as he attempts to murder Bane alongside other members of the agency. He also tries to kill Bruce, Waller, and Tiffany Fox at Ace Chemicals. At this point, killing is a part of Joker's descent further into dealing with APD. He is now fully integrated into the criminal behavior symptom of this disorder. Joker also lives with many unhealthy relationships, which is again another sign of APD. He is fully in love with Harley, even though it is clear that she is manipulating him at every point she can. On the other hand, his best friend, Bruce Wayne, is also manipulating him to some degree, and he blindly does everything he can to please Bruce. It's almost sad in a way, because every relationship the Joker seems to have is about pleasing the other person. That is, of course, except for Riddler, who Joker hates and holds a huge grudge against him. Grudges are also another symptom of APD. All of these relationships don't help Joker, and it's almost no wonder he snaps by the end of the game, upon the realization that he was a pawn in the game being played by Bruce, Riddler, Harley, and Amanda Waller. In the end, depending on player choices, Joker sticks with Bruce's moral code for as long as he can, but eventually, the sociopathic behavior can't be held in any longer because of the extreme pressure that Joker is under. He snaps, and with this, we see that his sense of right and wrong is now fully gone. That first symptom of APD that I mentioned, the inability to distinguish between right and wrong, has now consumed Joker. He acts only on his own accord and without remorse for the people who he is hurting. And with that, Joker's struggle with antisocial personality disorder is fully realized. And Telltale Games should be commended for their portrayal of Joker's unique characteristics and this awful and unfortunate mental health condition. Of course, outside of the killing part, you could say another character in this game displays antisocial personality disorder. And not the obvious ones like Harley and Bane. Oh, no. There is certainly an argument to be made that Bruce Wayne himself is too a victim of APD. But that's a tale for another day. So that brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, check out the rest of the Psychology of Gaming series. Do you guys agree that Joker is suffering from antisocial personality disorder, or do you think there's something else to it? Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning more, I've left some links in the description below to more on antisocial personality disorder. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Consider subscribing for more. And as always, have a nice day and take care.